Exposed, 5 spine-chilling true stories this summer that reveal the terrifying, haunted secrets. Sarah thought she was starting a beautiful new chapter in her life when she moved to the picturesque town of Maplewood. Her quaint 3-bedroom home on Maple Street whispered promises of warmth, safety, and a fresh start for her and her 2 children. The sweet scent of freshly baked cookies wafted through the house as her kids' laughter bounced off the walls, drowning out the echoes of the past. But after only a few weeks, that tranquility began to dissolve. At night, she heard whispers that curled around her, chilling her to the bone. Doors creaked open as if beckoning her to explore secrets hidden just beyond reach. The first sign came on a particularly unnerving night. Sarah was cradling a flickering candle when she heard a soft voice, insistent and full of yearning. It was barely audible, just a thin line of sound threading through the dark. She turned her head, her heart hammering, convinced she'd find one of her children wandering the hallway. But no one was there. Only the creaking of the old floorboards under her weight remained, a sinister reminder of what lurked in shadowed corners. Polite nods accompanied her attempts to befriend the neighbors. Each engaging conversation over white picket fences turned chilling when she shared her eerie experiences. Their smiles, once warm, grew thin and tight, the flicker of fear scratching the surface when she probed deeper. Whispers echoed from nearby yards, snippets of conversation dropped like stone, hinting at the town's dark history she had yet to uncover. The word disappearances hung over her, heavy and ominous. A tickling dread coiled around her gut. Had she unknowingly stepped into a web of past horrors? The chilling signs didn't stop at unsettling whispers. Soon, she found inexplicable scratches on her children's bedroom door, long, deep lines like desperate talons, cutting straight through her heart. Shadows stretched longer each evening, bending into shapes that made her shriek, feeling eyes watching her from the dark. The children remained blissfully unaware, their giggles like soft bells in a storm. Even her cries for help went unheard. The local police dismissed her concerns with indifference, claiming her fears were mere hysteria born from moving too fast. As if to highlight her plight, the sun dipped behind the horizon, falling into a chilling silence. Had this town welcomed her into an undying nightmare? The air grew heavier, charged with an unseen threat. Each night brought her to the edge of madness, her body filled with fright as she wandered the empty streets, flashlight trembling in her hand, desperately trying to pierce the darkness. The laughter that once surrounded her grew haunting, an echo of danger looming just out of sight. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In her frantic search for answers, Sarah stood on the threshold of her home, the night air taut with terror. Just as she tightened her grip on the phone to call for help, the door swung open. A familiar voice broke the silence, calling her name, a voice she thought she could trust. But in a town where smiles masked unspoken dread, who or what waited behind her? Was it truly a protector, or yet another reflection of the darkness within Maplewood? The door creaked as it opened wider, a shudder running through Sarah's body. She peered out into the thick darkness, where the lines separating safety from uncertainty blurred. The voice called her again, sweet and familiar, drawing her closer. "Mom! I was looking for you." It was Emma, her youngest. Relief washed over her, but the dread stung deeper. How did she get outside? Sarah glanced at the empty hallway, her heart racing. Emma had been asleep just moments ago. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't be out here," Sarah said, kneeling down. "Stay close to the house." Emma giggled, oblivious to the tension swirling around them. "But I heard a friend. She wanted to play with me." Her eyes sparkled with innocence, and for a moment, Sarah almost felt at ease. But then the shadows stirred. "Mommy!" Emma squeaked. The laughter died off as her expression changed in an instant. Fear crept onto her small face, mirroring Sarah's own growing horror. "Who are they, Mommy?" A group of figures stood in the distance, almost hidden by the folds of night. They seemed to shift in and out of reality, features obscured, faces blank. Sarah's stomach dropped. Had they always been there, lurking just beyond her vision? Had everyone in Maplewood known this was coming? Back inside. Sarah hissed, grabbing Emma's hand and yanking her toward the door. As they stepped back inside the house, the darkness spilled through the cracks, a suffocating presence. The brisk scent of candle wax swept through the room, but it did nothing to calm the gnawing sense of urgency. "I don't want to play with her, Mommy. I want to go," Emma cried, wriggling her small hand free. "They want me." Before Sarah could react, a sudden crash echoed from the kitchen. A flash of ice-blue light flickered against the walls, illuminating dark corners where shadows lurked. Beads of cold sweat formed at Sarah's temples as she rushed to grab a kitchen knife, her pulse thudding in her ears. "Stay behind me," she shouted, but Emma's little feet were already racing ahead, drawn to the light, the spell of mystery too powerful to resist. As they entered the kitchen, a familiar sticky residue clung to the floor, where something had once spilled a child's nightmare from long ago. Shattered glass crunched underneath her feet. On the walls, the scratches were deeper, more frenetic now, as if something had clawed and scratched its way out. "Mom?" Emma's voice trembled as she pointed. "Look! The window!" Colors twisted and danced through the glass, shapes merging into one. In the reflection, a face pressed against the outside, then another, and another. Eyes filled with an unnatural hunger stared back at them, mouths curling into a malicious grin that sent a visceral chill down Sarah's spine. "This isn't real. This isn't real," Sarah muttered, backing away. But another crash thundered behind her, the sound of doors slamming, filling the house with echoes of panic. They were inside now. Fear mounted like an avalanche, crashing down on Sarah, pushing her toward the edge. As Emma gripped her waist, she heard the whispers again, low and inviting. Join us," drawing a deep breath, Sarah spun around. They had crossed a line. "Get away from my kids," she screamed, brandishing the knife in front of her like a shield. The figures swayed, their shadows elongating, merging with the darkness around them. "Mommy, what do we do?" Emma cried, her tiny voice barely rising above the unsettling chorus. Before Sarah could respond, the voices grew deafening. The walls pulsed, the light flickered ominously, and then everything went pitch black. What had just consumed her world? Fear clutched her heart tighter than ever. And in that silence, a new question lingered. Was she truly alone, or had she invited something far more terrifying into her home? The darkness swallowed them whole, a black void where even sound seemed to bend and twist until it was nothing. Sarah's heart raced, pounding like a drum as she strained to catch a hint of light or movement. Emma's grip on her waist tightened. "Mommy?" Emma's whisper crackled with fear. Sarah hushed, feeling the tremor in her own voice. "Just stay close." The whispers escalated, swirling around them, taunting her with desperate cries. It was no longer just a lure but a command. Join us," each word resonated, twisting in the air with a sinister familiarity that felt both alien and oddly comfortable, like a long-forgotten memory. "Mommy, I can't see." Emma whimpered, her breath hitching as panic loomed. The kitchen felt endless, a maze of shadows churned by uncertainty. She felt her way along the wall, fingers brushing against the cool surface. They needed to find a way out. Suddenly, a flicker of icy light danced in the corner of the room, flickering like a dying star. Sarah squinted into it, the light revealing half-formed shapes, their dark silhouettes creeping closer, eyes gleaming with hunger. Every instinct screamed for her to retreat, yet something inside pulled her forward. A compulsion, a need to know. "Mommy!" Emma cried, and the spell was broken. Sarah twisted around, yanking Emma to her. "Stay by my side." The light wavered and dimmed, and Sarah realized it emanated from the old, broken chimney, now forming an opening to an unseen world. It vibrated with energy, pulling at her thoughts, whispering sweet nothings that felt like threats. "Can we go in?" Emma looked up, her innocent eyes betraying no fear, only curiosity. "No. We will not." But deep down, a part of her wondered. What lay beyond? Was it a chance for escape, or had they strayed too far into the darkness? The trust in her child's voice pierced her uncertainty, unearthing old desires, wonder and adventure overshadowed by dread. A loud crack shook the kitchen. Glass shattered, more keenly this time, and a phantom laughter joined the whispers, sending a jolt of ice down Sarah's spine. Reached out, tiny hands grasping, a patch of darkness draped over Emma's face. "Mommy! I want to go." Fear twisted her daughter's features, and in that moment, Sarah felt the weight of the night's gloom, that their safety was just an illusion, ready to be snatched away. "No!" Sarah shouted, and everything bellowed in ripples of sound, crashing against her ears. The figures surged forward, shadows sprawling like hungry tendrils, stretching, twisting into grotesque forms that beckoned them into the void. Sarah raised the knife, her hands trembling. It felt like nothing more than a paperweight against the only thing that mattered, her child. A desperate breath caught in Sarah's throat. Then she leapt forward, breaking through the flickering light and the beckoning shadows. The knife glimmered briefly, slicing through the dark like a beacon. The world around them warped, colors shifting wildly, revealing shimmering trails that intertwined, becoming a storm of chaos. "Mommy, I don't want to be here." Emma clutched her tighter, her nails biting into Sarah's skin. Then, in a blinding flash, a form stepped from the chaos, eyes cold and piercing, not a child of flesh, but a specter of something primordial and raw. It pointed at Sarah, and at that moment, she understood. It was not after her. It wanted Emma. Everything screeched to a stop. Heart racing, Sarah faced the creature, feeling her resolve harden. She would not let it take her daughter. "Stand back, Emma. I'll protect you." As she cried out, the shadows hissed, pulsing with rage, shifting like waves. The luminous figures closed in, the air thick with menace. In the depth of the nightmare, Sarah felt her reality unraveling, and she braced for the worst. What would happen next? Would she stand firm or crumble beneath the weight of their hunger? A scream shattered the bonds of silence. And then the floor beneath them trembled. Would it hold? Dread coiled tighter around Sarah, threatening to squeeze out any hope. But there was no choice. Would she risk everything to save Emma, or would the shadows seize their chance? In the darkness, a new voice broke through the fray, a familiar laugh echoing all too sweetly. Sarah had not yet realized the true horror was only beginning. The ground quaked violently beneath their feet, splitting the shadows in a wild frenzy. The darkness writhed like a living creature, reaching for Sarah and Emma, its cold tendrils snapping at the air. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a reminder of the urgency that time was slipping through their fingers like sand. "Mommy!" Emma shrieked again, her voice frantic, piercing the chaos like an arrow through fog. "Hold on to me, Emma. I want to let go." Sarah's voice strained, but she fought to project the strength she didn't feel. The figures enclosed around them, eyes glowing with a hunger that felt all-consuming. She raised the knife again, its blade sparking against the grasping shadows, sending a shiver up her spine. A flash of clarity struck Sarah. These restless shadows were feeding off their fear. If only she could anchor her thoughts, draw on resolve rather than despair. "We will not be yours," she screamed, her voice ringing defiantly. A rumbling laughter echoed back, monstrous and mocking. You think you have a choice? The voice slithered around her, wrapping her in a cold embrace, a dreadful intimacy that made her shudder. Don't listen, Mommy. Emma whimpered, distraught. The grip on her waist tightened further, small fingers digging into flesh like little claws. Lightning flashed, illuminating a new reality. The shadows flickered and warped, twisting into shapes that felt unsettlingly familiar. Inside that electrical glare, she saw faces. Old friends, long gone, twisted into grotesque parodies. Their mouths moved in silence, screaming her name. Sarah. One of them mouthed, a face frozen in horror, eyes wide and pleading. Nathan. Her husband. No. The pain of loss shot through her chest like a blade. She tore her gaze away, forcing herself to focus on Emma. She needed to stay present. We need to get out. With a swift motion, Sarah propelled herself forward, dragging Emma along the ground as the shadows recoiled momentarily. Thundering footsteps followed, and she could feel the malice behind them, pursuing with relentless intent. What was real? What was illusion? Each breath tasted of fear. Suddenly, a dense fog enveloped them, and visibility dropped to nothing. Sarah stumbled, her heart racing. Was she leading them to freedom or deeper into the abyss? Mommy, I can't breathe, Emma whimpered. Panic seeped into her voice, squeezing Sarah's heart till it ached. Just a bit further. I promise. Sarah shouted, feeling dread claw at her throat. A sudden gust of wind tore through the haze, separating them. Emma's tiny hand slipped from hers with a gasp. Time slowed. Emma. Desperation ignited her movements. Sarah swung around, hands clawing at the thick air as she searched for her daughter. What if they were lost to one another in this dark maze forever? Then, through the haze, she spotted a flicker of familiar silhouette standing near the old chimney. Emma. Relief washed over her, only to be replaced with a chill that curled her stomach. The silhouette began to morph, twisting into the shape of something that looked too much like Nathan, a shadow of despair beckoning her. Mommy. Emma's voice trembled, frayed. Run. Sarah urged, her heart racing anew. She dove forward, plunging through the fog towards Emma. But the shadows came alive, cascading towards her, blocking every path, every escape. As she reached out, a pair of icy hands grasped her wrists, pulling her down. Panic surged as everything began to spiral. No. Let go. The laughter echoed again, each note dripping with malice, teasing her reality. Everything felt unreal, like a dream that turned nightmarish. Then, amid the chaos, the familiar laughter emerged once more, clearer this time, a twisted mockery of the joy it used to bring. An overwhelming wave of despair hit her like a freight train. Perhaps there was no escape. What if they were truly bound to this darkness, lost in the shadows forever? But in the depths of despair, could there yet be a spark of hope? She felt something stir within her, the remnants of a defiant flame flickering against the dark. If only she could discover what truly lay behind the veil, perhaps she could save her daughter or unleash something far, far worse. Mommy, please. Emma's voice shattered the thick tension like glass. Then, just as quickly as it began, silence enveloped them again. Sensing a shift, Sarah held her breath. Shadows lurked quietly, eyes glimmering with hunger, leaving a haunting question in the air: what emerged when silence fell? And then came the whisper, "Join us." The silence stretched long and heavy, a suffocating blanket over the air around them. For a moment, Sarah's heart nestled between hope and dread, caught in the tight clutch of uncertainty. The oppressive darkness seemed to breathe, each slithering shade circling like predators waiting for a moment of weakness. Mommy. Emma's voice trembled, snapping through the oppressive stillness. The refrain of terror echoed, and Sarah's instincts kicked in. She needed to move, to act, to fight for her child. Emma, where are you? Panic clawed at her throat, hot and stinging. The shadows remained dormant, but their threatening eyes watched her every movement. "Mommy!" Her daughter sounded far away, as if the shadows were pulling her into their clutches. Sarah willed herself to push past the fear, forcing her mind to concentrate. "Stay calm. I'm coming. Just hold on." She had to believe. She took a deep breath, steeling herself against the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. With determination, she forced herself into the depths of the ghostly fog. Hugging the knife close, she stumbled forward, each step eliciting whispers that grew louder, drowning every rational thought. "Join us!" echoed all around, wrapping themselves around her lungs like an invisible shroud. "No! I will not!" Her voice rang out in defiance, strong enough to repel some of the shadows. But doubt gnawed at her resolve. What did joining mean? And then, she heard it, a faint cry, almost a whimper. "Mommy!" It split through the haze like a knife. Another step, and she was closing in. Then, the shadows shifted. They slithered closer on the ground, reshaping, drawing nearer with each moment. She swung her knife again, the blade catching the flickers of light and casting erratic shadows on the earth. The tangible feeling of something cold brushed against her skin, and she knew the shadows were closing in. "Emma!" She ran faster, searching desperately. A flicker of movement in the gloom caught her eye. A small figure darted back and forth. She lunged into it and found herself colliding with something soft. "Mommy!" Emma's face was pale, eyes wide with terror but alive with hope. Sarah pulled her close, wrapping her arms around her little body, desperate to shield her from the encroaching nightmare. Behind them, a crackling laugh reverberated in the air, making the hair on the back of Sarah's neck rise. "You think you can escape? You're already part of us." It echoed, swirling around them, pressing in tight. "No!" she shouted, primal anger surging within her. "We are not yours." The shadows recoiled slightly, but just for a moment. "Emma, keep your eyes on me," Sarah commanded, dragging her daughter in the opposite direction. Thankfully, the silhouette of a doorway began to materialize through the fray, a semblance of escape. The laughter morphed into shrieks of rage as they pushed forward. Shadows lashed out, grabbing for them, entwining around their legs with cold fingers. They stumbled, losing footing as a cacophony of voices melded into one. "Stay with us, stay forever!" With all her strength, Sarah pulled Emma into a sprint towards the door. Each step felt heavy, as if dragging through molasses, yet she pushed, adrenaline pumping through her veins like wildfire. The only salvation they had was just ahead. But as they were about to breach the threshold, a great force struck Sarah in the back, sending her sprawling against the ground. The knife flew from her hand, clattering uselessly several feet away. "Julia, join us!" came the sultry whispers like a caress. Desperation blanketed Sarah again, but she fought against the encroaching darkness, grasping for something, anything, to anchor her will. "Emma!" she cried, forcing herself up to see her daughter's wide eyes reflecting sheer terror. The shadows loomed over both of them, a smothering darkness twisting like a storm on the brink of unleashing fury. In that instant, Sarah brought Emma close, whispering, "Whatever happens, remember we are not afraid." But as she prepared to scream a final defiance, another sound joined the clamor, growing louder. Like the distant roar of thunder. The ground rippled again, and a deeper voice intoned, "You don't have to be afraid if you're willing to join us." And just before the deep shadows engulfed them, Sarah glimpsed something lurking just beyond the door, a figure waiting, eyes glowing with the promise of answers or perhaps another torment. "Mommy, what now?" Emma's voice trembled, pulling at Sarah's unraveling strength. As the world began to darken further and the laughter turned to a haunting chorus, Sarah whispered, "We'll find a way out, whatever it takes." But with each word, the uncertainty loomed, the inevitable question hung thick in the air. What lay beyond the door, and would they truly find salvation, or would they succumb to the shadows waiting just past the edge of light? With the darkness encroaching, Sarah felt her heart thunder in her chest, a wild animal desperate to escape its cage. She could no longer hear the laughter. The silence was broken only by her ragged breaths and Emma's whimpers, which pierced through the thick fog like shards of glass. "Mommy, I'm scared." Emma clung tighter, her fingers digging into Sarah's arm. The shadows pressed in, their cold tendrils reaching out. But Sarah couldn't let them have her. Not now. Not ever. With trembling hands, she reached for the knife she had dropped, panic surging as she spotted it, just a few feet away. But the moment she moved, a dark mass swooped down, curving around her ankles like a serpent. She fell, crashing hard to the ground. The shadows pulsed, and for a brief moment, the light from the doorway flickered like a dying candle. "Emma!" she screamed, desperation igniting within her. The shadows roared back in response, intertwining like grotesque dancers celebrating the hunt. This time, as they approached, she saw them clearer, their features twisted and contorted, faces that were a morbid collection of lost voices reflecting her darkest fears. "Join us," the shadows crooned, the chill of their whispers crawling under her skin. "You want to protect her, but you can't ever escape." "Enough!" Sarah shouted, scrambling to her feet, her eyes blazing with a fury centering in her chest. She lunged for the knife, gripping it tightly, feeling its cool metal ground her for a moment. The doorway grew dimmer, flickering on the brink of disappearing altogether. "Run, Emma!" Sarah shouted. "Run to the light." Her daughter hesitated, glancing back at the horrors behind them, the shadows now howling in anger. But Sarah's voice cut through the confusion, and Emma bolted towards the door, her small frame darting through the thick haze. "Stay together!" Sarah yelled, forcing herself to move. With every ounce of love, she threw herself forward, ignoring the fingers of darkness trying to drag her back. As she raced, she could hear the shadows hissing, a furious storm of whispered threats swirling around her. In a moment of clarity, as she crossed the threshold, a flash of intense light blinded her. She stumbled through the doorway, dragging Emma to her side just as the edge of the darkness lashed out, nearly snatching them both back. Sarah felt something catch her leg, the cold pulling her down, this time with an almost sentient force. "No!" she screamed, digging the knife into the ground and bracing herself against the edge of the light. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she kicked sideways, breaking free of their grasp. They emerged into a wide, eerie space that hummed with energy, a grotesque realm in stark contrast to the choking fog. Before them, a swirling mist of memories hung in the air, echoing lost voices that seemed familiar yet distant. Figures danced at the periphery, mirroring their own terror with expressions of confusion and despair. Sarah clutched Emma closer. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice a low whisper tinged with panic. "Mommy, look!" Emma pointed. Past the swirling memories, a face emerged, a woman with eyes that sparkled bright against the tapestry of shadows. She was familiar yet alien, her smile both inviting and foreboding. "You found the way, but the game has only just begun," the woman spoke, her voice sweet yet echoing with a hint of malice. "Every choice carries a price." Sarah felt a shiver race down her spine. "What do you mean?" she demanded, the knife quivering in her grip. Suddenly, they joined the cacophony of voices, each whisper cascading into Sarah's mind. "Free us or join us," they echoed like a relentless tide pulling her under. It churned within her, threatening to drown her in despair. As the fleeting light began to dim once more, the woman stepped closer, her eyes glimmering with a menacing allure. "Are you ready to play?" And at that moment, with shadows creeping closer behind and whispers weaving into her soul, the question loomed larger than before. What price would she pay for salvation? What truth awaited her in the depths of this cursed realm? The shadows threatened to consume them both as Sarah gripped the knife tighter, the steel biting into her palm. Emma's small body trembled against her, each of the child's breaths fogging the air like a ghostly breath. Around them, the swirling mist pulsed and throbbed, almost sentient. The scene morphed, memories taking shape like ghosts of their past, familiar yet twisted, each moment a reminder of what Sarah fought for. "Mommy," Emma whispered, her voice quavering like a fragile string ready to snap. "I don't like this." "I know, sweetie," Sarah murmured, a growl of defiance building in her chest. She turned to the woman, her eyes piercing under the weight of uncertainty. "What do you want from us?" The woman's smile grew wider, revealing teeth sharp enough to tear through flesh. "That's the beauty of it, dear. You already know the answer. You seek to protect her. But in this haunting realm, it demands a sacrifice. Choose wisely or lose her forever." Cold tears threatened to spill from Sarah's eyes, the truth of the woman's words slicing through her soul. She could feel the shadows caressing her, pulling her, enticing her with promises of freedom, of escape if only she surrendered herself. But the price was not hers to pay. It was Emma's life they were after. "Let her go!" Sarah shouted, her voice echoing among the shadows. The mist twisted, vacillating like turbulent waters, but the woman remained rooted, her eyes glittering with a wicked delight. As darkness rippled around them, Sarah pondered her choice. Memories flickered like snapshots: Emma's first steps, laughter over shared ice cream, bedtime stories beneath soft blankets. Those moments kept her grounded, igniting a fire within. But the woman's gaze, filled with malice, flickered like a flame. "What if I refuse?" Sarah challenged, stubbornness replacing fear. The woman stepped closer, and shadows flared, rushing over her like a wave crashing on a shore. "This place thrives on bargaining. Every thought, every fear, it feeds on your despair. You think your love protects her? Love can be a double-edged sword." Suddenly, a scream echoed through the fog, a phantom cry that sent a shiver up Sarah's spine. It engulfed her, reminding her that horrors lingered just beyond the veil of familiarity. "Mommy!" Emma clutched her tighter, her small fingers biting into Sarah's skin. "I'm scared." "Emma, look at me." Sarah knelt down, forcing their eyes to meet. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Whatever it takes, I'll protect you. We'll find a way. Will we?" Emma asked, her gaze darting to the swirling mists filled with lost voices and spectral figures. The uncertainty hung thick between them, heavier than the air they breathed. "Trust me," Sarah whispered, fear gripping her heart but desperation fueling her resolve. The shadows closed in, whispering promises and threats in equal measure. But Sarah only gripped the knife tighter, eyes sharp against the chaos around them. Then, as if sensing her resolve, the woman laughed, a chilling sound that pierced the fog surrounding them. "All games come with rules, dear Sarah. Only one may escape unscathed, and time is slipping away." Then the mists began to part, revealing paths hidden in the depths of darkness, a choice laid bare, flickering in and out like a candle about to extinguish. Each path pulsed with an eerie glow, beckoning, revealing visions of futures unknown, layered with promises and horrors alike. "Choose or lose her forever," the woman taunted, stepping back, leaving them in the tension of indecision. As the room spun, a fragment of the past flickered in the light. Would she dive deeper into the shadows for a chance to return to the light? The question hung heavy in the air. Was love enough to conquer the darkness, or would it cost her everything? And right then, Sarah realized that the game had only just begun. A choice awaited her, one that could seal their fate and lead them either back to safety or into the endless abyss. What would she do? The fog swirled tighter, pressing against Sarah and Emma as if it could devour them whole. Shadows danced on the edges of visibility, their movements almost mocking. Adrenaline pooled in Sarah's veins, tightening every muscle in her body. She had to make a choice. "Mommy, I can't see anything." Emma's voice sliced through the oppressive silence, trembling with fear. "Stay close, Emma," Sarah forced the words out. Each syllable felt like a heavy stone, tumbling from her mouth as dread curled in her stomach. She scanned the paths, their eerie glows pulsed like heartbeats, promising escape but oozing malevolence. The woman loomed over them, her grin stretching impossibly. "Time isn't on your side, dear. The longer you wait, the more interesting things will become." The flicker of memories surged through Sarah's mind, images of Emma's laughter now tainted by the shadows twisting them. What would they sacrifice? The thought gnawed at her as she continued to whisper reassurances. "Just hold on to me," Sarah shouted suddenly, shaking off doubt. They could fight. There had to be a way. Forcing her focus on the glowing paths, she saw a faint shimmer beyond one. A promise of safety, but could that be trusted? "Mommy, I'm scared," Emma burst out again. Panic laced her voice, fraying the last threads of Sarah's composure. "I know, baby. I know." With resolve fusing into her bones, she stepped forward, dragging Emma along. "Let us try this one." As they moved, the shadows pulsed, swirling aggressively as if angered by their choice. The mist slithered upward, a black fog arching overhead, reaching for them with icy fingers. A chilling wind howled around them, amplifying Emma's cries of fear. "Mommy!" Emma shrieked, pulling back, fear coiling around Sarah's heart like a snake. "No, no." Sarah gritted her teeth, clutching the knife, its handle familiar yet heavy. She couldn't let the darkness win. "We have to trust it. Just a little further." But before they could take another step, the very ground trembled beneath them. The shadows flared, uprooting from their hiding places. They howled, voices mingled echoing past sorrows, twisted cries of the lost. "Run!" Sarah screamed, feeling the pull of despair reach out, clawing at her skin. She wrapped her arm around Emma, propelling them into the maze of shadows. But the mists churned violently, clinging to them like a suffocating blanket. Emma stumbled, the little girl's heart racing against Sarah's. "Mommy, what's happening?" She gasped, her eyes wide, the glow of fear reflecting back at Sarah. "Hold on!" Sarah shouted, pushing through the fog. Suddenly, the path split, revealing a towering wall of shadows that seemed alive. In its center, a gaping maw of darkness appeared, exhaling whispers that taunted her soul. "Only one can survive. Only one," the woman's voice echoed, laced with infinite malice. "I choose love." Sarah screamed back, desperation clawing at her throat. She felt the knife like a burning ember in her palm, the answer sparking inside her. But then the world flipped, the ground shifting soft and treacherous beneath her. Just as they turned, the shadows lunged forward, smothering them like an avalanche. Everything blurred, darkness blinding them, pulling them apart. "Mommy!" Emma's scream fractured the air, drowning in the howling chaos. Sarah reached out, but shadows twisted, enveloping Emma in a sepulchre of despair. "Emma!" Panic burst forth from Sarah's chest, raw and electric. She was losing her. An echo of laughter filled the air, the woman's gleeful tones swirling through the mist. "Choose now, dear Sarah. Choose to save your love, or save yourself." A split second stretched into an eternity, leaving her breathless. The darkness pressed in, clawing, scratching at her skin. And then everything went silent. Sarah stood at the precipice of her decision, adrenaline pounding. Love thrummed in her heart, fueling her resolve. Now, all that remained was the terrifying choice before her. Would she forsake everything she cherished to save Emma? Or choose the fading path of her own survival? The shadows pulsed with anticipation, awaiting her answer. What would she do? The world around Sarah began to twist and distort, the silence becoming unbearable. Her heart raced as she stood at a deadly crossroads, the shadows curling, whispering secrets that should never be spoken. The sanctity of love battled against the savage instinct of self-preservation in her mind. "Emma!" Her voice broke through the fog, each syllable fraught with urgency. But no answer came, just the insistent whispers echoing in the darkness. "Emma, answer me." A distant whimper drifted through the thickening air, an echo of her daughter's fear. It sent a wave of cold dread washing over her. Gathering herself, she thrust herself forward into the dark maw that loomed, hoping desperately it would lead her to Emma. The shadows darted around like angry phantoms, clawing at her legs, pulling her down into their depths. Sarah fought, forcing her way through. Her body felt it might splinter from the pressure surrounding her. "Stay with me," she shouted into the thick blackness, instinct driving her forward. Then she remembered the knife in her hand. Its cold weight felt like a lifeline. "I'm coming, Emma. Hold on." Her footsteps faltered as the laughter returned, echoing like distant thunder mixed with maniacal mirth. The woman's voice wrapped around her, seductive and poisonous. "You think love can save you? You must choose. There are no heroes here, sweet Sarah." With each step, the shadows pulsed more violently, hunger radiating from their depths. The path shifted beneath her again, treacherous and uncertain. She gritted her teeth against the tang of iron in the air, a stark reminder of the high stakes of this night. "Mommy." Emma's voice cracked, a jarring sound that ignited fear into Sarah's chest. She couldn't let the darkness win. It was closing in, hungry for her surrender. "Emma. I'm almost there." Sarah stumbled through a sea of shadows, weightless yet heavy. She could almost see Emma's figure swirling, lost yet still there, a beacon in a storm of despair. Just beyond reach. The laughter intensified a cacophony that squealed and twisted, echoing in her skull. How sweet such devotion! But, love requires sacrifices, doesn't it? The point of choice clanged within her. Panic surged as the shadows contorted, mounting like a wall of despair. She gripped the knife tighter, the handle biting into her palm. It was time for a final act, a desperate grasping at hope in the face of despair. "Leave her alone," Sarah shouted, advancing into the shadows with unwavering determination. She felt as though the mists were alive, clawing at her skin, cold and clammy. Suddenly, the mist parted, revealing a horrific visage. A fragmented reflection of her own face twisted in anguish stared back at her. Sarah gasped, recoiling as she saw it was clinging tightly to the edges of her reality. The woman distorted, every smile a representation of her own doubts. "She will pay for your choices." "Shut up." Sarah slammed the knife down, connecting with something solid. It sliced through the crowding shadows, severing the chaos that threatened to entangle her. In that moment of defiance, the air shifted. The laughter faltered, falling into a guttural growl before dissipating into silence. For a brief heartbeat, everything stood still. Hope flickered, a candle light against the storm. But then the ground shifted violently under her feet again. The boundaries of darkness heaved, and that twisted visage of doubt shattered, only to reform into a new horror. "Did you think it would be that easy?" The woman whispered, her voice breaking like glass, cutting into the moment of hope. "Your love is exquisite, but the darkness hungers for more." A sparkling path glowed ahead, the very essence of hope, but shadows continued to curl at her ankles, desperate and grasping. Sarah's heart thundered as she realized Emma was not just lost within the depths of the fog, she might also be ensnared in a choice of her own. A shudder raced through her, cold dread creeping into her bones. If she found her daughter, would she have to make an even darker choice? What lingered ahead may forever change them both. "Emma. I'm coming." The race against the shadows wasn't over yet, not until she could save her daughter, or lose everything she held dear. Choices loomed ahead, unfurling like dark petals. What horrific choices awaited them both? The fog thickened as Sarah forged ahead, determination overtaking fear. The shadows hissed, swirling around like dark tendrils. "Emma." She called, voice resolute, clinging to the hope that her daughter was somewhere within reach. She could not falter now, not when it mattered most. Then, she spotted her. Emma stood at the edge of a faint yellow glow, innocent and small among the darkness. Relief surged through Sarah, igniting a desperate energy. "Emma! I'm coming!" But with each step, the shadows pulsed violently, attempting to herd her back into despair. They clawed at her ankles, pulling her into a rapidly closing maw of darkness. "You can't save her," they hissed, voices unending, echoing through her mind like cruel laughter. "Leave her alone." Sarah roared, finding a well of strength she didn't know existed. She pressed on, squeezing the knife tightly, feeling its smooth, cold handle sing under her grip. With a surge of adrenaline, she lunged forward, arms extended. A surge of energy crackled through the air. For a moment, the shadows recoiled as if hit. Light enveloped Sarah and Emma, a protective cocoon against the horrors lurking just beyond. "Mommy!" Emma cried, eyes wide with fear. "Just hold my hand." Sarah called back, grounding herself in her daughter's gaze. The shadows writhed nearby but hesitated, darting at the edges of their light, unwilling to confront whatever empowered Sarah's will. As she reached Emma, Sarah scooped her daughter up into her arms, the weight of her small body a comforting reassurance. "Stay close," she whispered fiercely. "We're leaving this nightmare together." The path ahead shimmered, radiating warmth against the encroaching shadows. But just as they approached the threshold, the woman stepped into view, her smile wide, eyes glinting with otherworldly knowledge. "You think you can escape, sweet Sarah? Your love binds you to this realm. You must choose a sacrifice for freedom, or will you seal this fate forever?" Sarah's heart sank but resolved as she tightened her grip around Emma, refusing to let despair take hold. "I refuse to let you take anything from us," she shouted defiantly. The woman's face twisted in anger, her laughter filling the air like nails on a chalkboard. "Fighting will cost you dearly." But it was too late. Emotions coursed through Sarah: fear, love, and an unwavering determination forged from the best parts of motherhood. The shadows raged around them, closing in, angered by her stand, but she held firm, guiding Emma toward the light. "Come on, baby, we can do this." They stepped closer together, hearts pounding in unison, and as they reached the threshold of glowing safety, the shadows lashed out, intent on dragging them back into the void. The moment they crossed over, an explosion of brilliance erupted, blindingly bright. Sarah shielded Emma from the glare, feeling her own pulse quicken with a reckless passion. As vision cleared, they found themselves back on Maple Street, sunlight streaming down, illuminating the familiar face of their quaint home. The whispers faded, the heaviness lifted, and the air became light and fragrant with blooming flowers. "Mommy?" Emma's heartbeat echoed in the tranquility, a soft tether of reality. "It's all right, Emma," Sarah said, kneeling down, eyes locked onto her daughter's. "We're okay. We made it." But then, the flicker of shadows lingered at the periphery of their vision, the laughter hauntingly distant yet tangible, hinting at a danger that would always lurk just beyond sight. "Mommy, are they gone?" Emma asked, her small voice trembling. "Yes, my love," Sarah said, though doubt creased her brows. "They're gone." And as they embraced, warmth enveloped them, yet a shiver still lingered down Sarah's spine. She knew then that this battle might be over, but the fight for protection would never truly end. The darkness could return, lurking at the edges always. Breathe. Hold on. Love fiercely. She would face it all again if it meant keeping Emma safe. In the silent aftermath of a tumultuous night, Sarah turned to look back at the house, where the wind seemed to whisper softly, echoing with lingering promises and hidden dangers. With the day stretching its golden arms around them, she took a deep breath, holding Emma close, ready to face whatever was to come together. You need to subscribe now to catch every twist and turn in the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to help us feed the algorithm and continue this journey together. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I really want to hear your thoughts. And please, Share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who have to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. Only true fans appreciate the importance of your support.